The horrifying truth about the SS breeding program. Under the guise of preserving the superior race, the Nazi SS forces turned tens of thousands of women into reproductive tools and robbed innocent children of their childhood. In the darkness of the horrifying project called Lebensborn, hundreds of thousands of lives were Germanized, only to grow up on the boundary between crime, identity, and nightmares that would never fade. The terrifying truth about the SS nursery program. From the enactment of the Nuremberg Laws until the outbreak of World War II, 1939, the birth rate in Germany declined noticeably. While in 1935, Germany's population was approximately 80 million people, by 1939, it had dropped to only about 75 million because the Nuremberg Laws prevented many Germans, whom Hitler called the superior race, Aryan, from marrying Jews, Gypsies, or Slavs, even though these people lived in Germany and held German citizenship. To compensate for the population shortage and especially to maintain the Aryan race, the Lebensborn campaign gave German soldiers the green light to marry women in countries occupied by Germany, such as France, Norway, Austria, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Denmark, and were even permitted to coerce or rape. If these women became pregnant, they would receive special treatment including housing, food, and medical care, and when they gave birth, the child would be handed over to the SS forces to raise until adulthood. According to Hitler, he desired that by 1945, Germany's population should reach 120 million. One of the key figures actively implementing the Lebensborn campaign was Colonel Erich Steiner. He personally examined each woman that German soldiers wanted to marry. The standards set by Steiner were priority for unmarried women, balanced figure, height from 1.7 meters or above, blonde hair, white skin, blue eyes, descended from families where for 3 generations no one had married Jews, Gypsies, or Slavs. In Himmler's secret order to Steiner, Himmler wrote, "The purpose of the Lebensborn campaign is to serve SS leaders in selecting and adopting children who meet the standards. It is under my personal direction as part of the SS Central Personnel Resolution Bureau. It has the following obligations: support pure Aryan families, care for pregnant women of racial, biological, and genetic value. Caring for and educating the children born is the duty and honor of SS members. Applications to join Lebensborn must be sent to me personally for approval and authorization. With such stringent requirements, in the first year of the Lebensborn campaign, only 40% of women in occupied countries met the standards, but by 1940, it was 70%. Specifically for women who were coerced or raped, this number was 57.6%. To facilitate women participating in the Lebensborn campaign, Himmler established SS nurseries, also called Lebensborn houses, with furniture and household items taken as war spoils from wealthy Jewish families in Germany and occupied countries. At these nurseries, women confirmed to be pregnant would receive full meals and attentive medical care when they gave birth, and if it was a boy, the child would also be raised in the best conditions. The first Lebensborn house was opened in Steinhuring, a small village several dozen kilometers from the city of Munich, Germany. Subsequently, 10 more houses were established in Germany, 9 houses in Norway, 2 houses in Austria, and countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Luxembourg, Denmark. Each had 1 house. On average, each house raised about 3,000 women. If anyone gave birth on October 1st, Himmler would personally visit and give gifts because that was also his birthday. Women who gave birth to many children, 3 or more, and all boys, would be awarded the Mother of Germany medal by Himmler. By the end of 1939, the Lebensborn campaign did not yield the results Himmler expected, so he ordered all SS officers and police forces to be allowed to use any means to have as many children as possible, and Himmler even approved prostitutes as long as they met racial principles. As a result, in 1942 alone, About 100,000 newborns, the result of one-night affairs, were brought from Poland to Germany to be Germanized. At the nursery centers, when they began to gain awareness, these children were told by German nurses that they were orphans because their parents were killed by British, French, Russian, American bombs. Muller, name has been changed, one of the children from the SS nursery after the war ended and the Lebensborn campaign was exposed, testified to the prosecutors at the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal. At just 5 years old, we were taught to hate Jews and inferior races. Many children, when asked what they would do when they grew up, answered they would join the SS. A few who were negligent in class, because perhaps they hadn't absorbed what the SS officers taught, would disappear a few days later. Later, I learned, they went to concentration camps. Tens of thousands of Lebensborn children reclaimed their identity after 70 years. In Norway, the Lebensborn campaign organized nearly 400 marriages between SS officers and local women, resulting in 250 children being born. All these mothers were forced to agree to have their children adopted, but no one knew the children were taken to Germany. When the war ended, the Norwegian government found 80 children. Documents about Lebensborn are still kept at the Norwegian National Archives. In 1942, to retaliate for the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, commander of the SS forces in Prague, Czechoslovakia, an SS unit executed all the men in the village of Lidice, then kidnapped 91 infants from 6 months to 2 years old, the age that Lebensborn campaign commanders believed was best for Germanization, and brought them to Germany. The remaining nearly 400 children, aged 3 to 15, were transferred to special children's camps, and no one knows their fate. Volker Heinecke, one of the 2-year-old children kidnapped to Germany in late 1942, recounted that he and many other children were transferred by the SS to a Munich, Germany hospital for racial examination. Next, an SS officer's family adopted him and gave him the German name Volker Heinecke. Now 67 years old, he still remembers his father was a fanatic Nazi and close friend of Himmler, who regularly visited his parents. He said, 5 years after the war, I learned about my true origin, and it took another 3 years before I could return to where my biological parents were killed by German soldiers to place flowers on their graves. Cases of kidnapping like Volker Heinecke are estimated at about 12,000 children. When American and Allied forces liberated France, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, all children living in SS nurseries in these countries were transferred to Germany. One day after Hitler's suicide, the 1st of May 1945, American paratroopers entering the town of Steinhoring found over 300 children aged 6 months to 6 years in a state of hunger and thirst, because most of the people working at the SS nursery had fled. In the Stars and Stripes newspaper, the U.S. military newspaper, reporter Steve Collins wrote about this. Almost all the children I asked said they were German, and they were sent here by their parents to become good Germans. In Bremen and Leipzig, British and Russian soldiers also found several hundred children in SS nurseries, but as in Steinhoring, none of these children knew they had been kidnapped or were raised solely to prepare a superior generation of successors. The consequence was that when returned to their real families, many children aged 5 to 6 had been so Germanized that they could no longer integrate. To this day, it is almost impossible to know how many children from occupied countries entered the SS nurseries. In 1946, the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal estimated that over 250,000 children were born from marriages between German husbands and local wives, or were kidnapped, and only about 25,000 children were found after the war, because many German families who adopted children hid them without reporting. And even a lieutenant colonel working for the Gestapo secret agency, when committing suicide to avoid falling into Allied hands, forced his wife and 3 adopted children to die with him. Additionally, some children born from marriages between German husbands and local wives or who were kidnapped refused to return to their real families because they believed they were pure Germans rather than Poles, Norwegians, Belgians, or Czechs. Furthermore, about 27,500 children judged not good enough to be Germanized died in the ovens of concentration camps. Post-war medical examinations showed that the vast majority of children living in SS nurseries were much healthier than children of the same age living with their biological parents. They were bathed twice a day and sunbathed at appropriate times. Milk, eggs, and meat regularly appeared in daily meals, while children outside had to endure starvation rations. After World War II, the leaders of the Lebensborn campaign operating in Northeast Europe were charged with kidnapping children deemed racially valuable. But prosecutors only found 340 pieces of evidence because SS members had burned all nursery records before fleeing. Many German women and others in Norway, Austria, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Luxembourg, Denmark, who married or became pregnant out of wedlock with SS officers to give birth to superior children, were ostracized, scorned by the community, even had their heads shaved and were beaten, while children returning to society from SS nurseries were boycotted. Eric Wolfgang, now 72 years old, living in a subway tunnel in Hamburg, Germany, still remembers those days vividly. My adoptive parents abandoned me because they were afraid of being convicted. I don't know who my biological parents are. I lived precariously in a charity camp, and here I learned how to lie, steal, and cheat. At 13, I was addicted to cigarettes. At 15, addicted to alcohol. At 18, my only way of making a living was loading cargo at the Hamburg docks, and if I had the opportunity to rob, I would do that too. In post-war Norway, children with German fathers and Norwegian mothers were often bullied, raped, abused, or mistreated. The Norwegian government once tried to deport these children to Germany, but was unsuccessful. In November 2006, in the town of Wernigerode, Germany, a meeting took place between people who had lived in SS nurseries, with a desire to eliminate social prejudices and be given back their clear origins. Annie-Fried Frida Lingstad, member of the world-famous band ABBA, also came from a nursery, said, "As long as the children who were kidnapped or adopted by the Nazis haven't found their true place, they will still remain an abandoned generation."